Welcome, Cheryl. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this interview with us.
Yeah, excited. My pleasure.
Great. As always, we like to start by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we're on. We also want to acknowledge our ancestors and elders whose shoulders we continue to stand on as we build and share together for our collective liberation. So can we start off by having you just introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, sure. Hi everybody. My name is Cheryl Case. I'm the founder and executive director of City Planning. My family moved to Canada in the 90s from Jamaica, and I'm very proud to be able to bring that history and heritage to the work and that perspective around Black communities and liberation, and the idea that with persistence you can see it and seek and receive a better future for yourself and your family.
That's right. So can you tell us about the origin of your work and how are you disrupting multiple ecosystems in Canada?
Yeah, so we're looking at the housing industry, which includes the planning of housing, the financing of housing, the permission of housing, and who is building this housing. So this is all wrapped up in what I would call the city building industry. And with that ecosystem has been, one of the key forces that has established Canada when you look at the dispossession of natives from their land and the way in which cities are built, right? Indigenous culture is not represented in that in any way. And so we see that those are the communities that are experiencing the greatest rates of homelessness, housing precarity. There are many health impacts as well. So going back to the function of the home and that security, that is a key priority of our work. And so how we got into looking into this space was really identifying the public narrative around housing was very different from the lived experience of many low-income people, right? So the city at the time, this was 2016, 2017, there was a big narrative about, oh my goodness, Toronto's building so many homes, what an amazing thing. But then, in the low-income neighborhoods, you see that schools are closing because not enough housing is being built. That leading then to greater risks of them not being able to complete their school or not complete it as well. Why is that happening? And then you look further, you see that housing affordability actually is deepening in terms of getting worse, right? More people are experiencing housing precarity. Why is it happening while the public narrative is, wow, so excited about all this development? So that's where I first started looking into the housing issue. And from that, dug deeper into seeing the disparity in terms of who gets to talk about and lead the development of neighborhoods, who has a chance to speak, and who is left there, simply said, being ignored and excluded from the narrative and also from the development of solutions.
Absolutely. So can you articulate the mission and the vision of CP planning for us?
Yeah, so CP Planning's mission is actually we're going through a strategic planning process. So we'll see what the mission comes out to be in early January. But at the core, what we are doing, our vision is to ensure that everybody has access to affordable housing, and that everyone also has access to meaningful work in this industry. And so when I say everybody, looking at who is not able to access those things, it is racialized people, it is immigrants, and it is also lower income communities. So when you look at a planning firm or even a municipal government or a nonprofit, where are racialized people in those spaces? We're very absent. So looking at how can we ensure that we are represented, and so how do we achieve that vision of everyone having access to good housing and also good jobs in city building? Well, that is achieved by engaging with those communities to generate with them statements around their interests, right? Because oftentimes they'll go to other spaces to engage, and there'll be a loss of that knowledge when it comes to the final product of anything being materialized, right? Communities will ask for affordable housing. That institution will say, well, it's not a priority for me, so I'm not going to publish on it. and then there's no partnership development. While we work directly with marginalized communities, we recognize and validate their ideas and help to develop partnerships that can see those ideas turn into real affordable housing development solutions. Like, for example, community land trusts. We've supported many groups on the establishment of those, putting out statements around what would their neighborhood look like if housing was a human right, doing workshops with government and with nonprofit leaders and all that. So that's a really core part of that process: movement building and partnership development and validation.
Absolutely. I love that. So can you break down how important or why it's so important for impact investing and philanthropic innovation in the work that you do?
Yeah, so this work is incredibly important to impact investing. You look at the real estate industry. This is one of the largest industries in this country, right? A lot of our money is locked up in housing, and a lot of money that could be spent is not spent because it's locked up in housing. So as looking at the industry as our economy as a whole, we are really being held back by this affordable housing crisis. So when we're able then to ensure affordable housing, which is in itself an investment, you'll very rarely find a development that is purely affordable housing. You will have market rate in there as well. So there's opportunity to make some profit in an affordable housing development project. Also, this industry is not just about affordable housing development, it's about planning. Governments spend a lot of money through consultants to guide development. So there's opportunity for investment in there and ensuring that the consultants are supported to prioritize impact investment and prioritize for social return on investment to be a priority. We're looking at things like tapestry bonds, which is a community fundraising model. How can planners support more social impact investment in shaping of neighborhoods? So the work here really does create a really great environment for social impact investors to contribute to the well-being of others through, either profiting on affordable housing development or encouraging folks to get into the space to develop other real estate assets.
That's great. So what inspires you most about your current model at CP Planning?
So what inspires me most is the dedication of the community members that we work with. So I just remember we hosted a resident summit in April. And usually when you host an event, you expect, maybe about 50% of people to not show up. Almost everybody who RSVP showed up. We didn't have any space. And we also, sent the invite out, I think, with just 2 weeks notice, which is a standard minimum you give people. And again, the room was overflowing. And that goes back to the passion of folks who are working for the community. They really want to see affordable housing. They, most of them were volunteers as well. So that really excites me. It says that, wow, okay, what I'm doing, people really want to see this. And so then when I do go out to engaging with, industry members, I'm not going alone because I know that there is a huge community of people who are looking for this change as well.
Absolutely. So what challenges or barriers do you face in your work, and how are you working to overcome them?
Yeah, well, I think the main challenge that we've been working on, CP Planning is a very young, new organization. So we started about 6 years ago, and we did go through some transformation over the last year. We grew from 1 to we're now 12 staff. And so just that growth itself has been a challenge, as maybe other executive listeners out there would understand. But I'm really glad to see where we've come now. We have an amazing team, and I'm really excited to continue to work with them and to carry out our mission. So that I think that's been the challenge I've been dealing with, is just that growth. And so I think what the challenge is coming up next is, I think it's, what we're looking towards next is sustainability, right? Because the work that we're doing, I think I couldn't talk about it without also mentioning that One thing that does bring me joy as well is that I'm able to provide meaningful employment for city builders who are looking to to guide us towards a more inclusive industry where people are able to have access to affordable housing. And when you look online and you talk to planners in the industry in general and most other spaces, you'll find that oftentimes folks might not actually find alignment with their work. They might find that they're doing work that actually is conflicting with their own social values. They may even at times I've come across people who've left the industry simply said because the work either they're saying that it's causing harm to their communities or it's causing harm to themselves by the fact that they're not able to invest in solution building with marginalized communities. The industry very much is about reinforcing the interests of wealthy communities and helping to develop their wealth, as opposed to addressing the core issues, which is, the affordable housing crisis, the lack of access to good jobs, and also the environmental protection. So, so that's the other challenge I'll be dealing with is how do I maintain the space that I've created for the wonderful team that I am able to work with, and then and how can we continue to grow this the sector of the city building industry where planners and city builders are able to work in spaces where they see that values alignment.
Right. Now, I know you've mentioned different priorities that you're working on right now, but do you have a key set that you want to highlight, things that you guys are working on now that you want to bring to our attention?
Yeah, so right now we're working on the roadmap for redevelopment plans to confront systemic racism. This is our largest project yet. So we're in Toronto, Peel, Hamilton, York, Kitchener-Waterloo, York, and Ottawa. And Hamilton, I always forget if I mentioned Hamilton in the middle or not, but those are the cities that we're invested into. These are cities that have all received major investment in transit. So, most often in LRT. The problem herein is that while the LRT is great, it's good to, be able to use public transit to get around, there has not been investment into ensuring that affordable housing is A, protected, or B, developed around those stations. And this is again going back to that matter of marginalized communities did speak up, but these were not carried through into policies, into partnership development. When you look at the amount of times that community also went out to media to express their fear, it again just there's a loss of translation towards that, resulting in policy or partnerships. And so what we're doing is we're working directly with community-based organizations. Ones that are fixed in terms of this is my neighborhood and this is where my field of scope is. So we're working with communities that are place-based nonprofits and partnering with them to engage with their local community. So we're working in 10 neighborhoods across the cities that I had mentioned to support them in exploring what their ideas are, to develop partnerships. For example, if there are nonprofits in their neighborhood who might be interested in building affordable housing on their property, do they themselves own property that can be developed with affordable housing? Supporting them then in that process of exploring affordable housing development on those sites, but then also helping them to develop relationships with those folks, with their municipal leaders, with developers, so that they can explore their ideas and then get towards development. We're also helping them with engaging with local property owners in their neighborhood. How can we get local private property owners to be a part of the affordable housing movement? What are the barriers? What are the opportunities? And so we're really excited by that. So that's one of the core functions of this work. The second function is we've been building consensus across all these cities or what the barriers and opportunities are. And we've identified 5 key pathways to ensuring that redevelopment plans confront systemic racism by developing affordable housing and also including racialized people in the economy of that city building.
Absolutely. I mean, that is inspiring. So with that being said, how do you feel about the future of impact investing and social finance in Canada?
Yeah, so I think the future of social impact investing is looking really bright. You look at the social finance fund, a lot of those holders of the social finance fund come from the real estate sector. And then that goes back again to, as I mentioned, where a lot of the money is wrapped up in our industry. And so with that, it shows again the importance of looking into community development and real estate development, and real estate policy and land policy as a core function of the social finance sector. And so I hope with time, this will become more clear, and seeing how can those who are looking to achieve health improvements or looking to improve social improvements look at housing as a key pathway to that.
I love that. So what is your ultimate goal with CP planning, and what does success look like for you?
So success looks like for me, so the National Housing Strategy notes that, their goal is to have everyone have access to affordable housing. And so to implement that, they made statements that, we're to implement a human rights-based approach to housing, a human rights-based approach to housing. You ask most folks, they have no idea what that actually means in practice. The implementation of that concept. So CP planning has been specializing in that concept for 6 years. Our foundation of what that means is grounded in the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, various articles that they publish on the intersection of human rights and housing. The Ontario Human Rights Commission also has great guidance on this topic. There is case law in Canada on the matter. And then also there's our experience of working with communities and seeing what that means. And so I think one of my dreams is to see that a human rights-based approach to housing is normalized and becomes the mainstream. So right now we're functioning very different from most planning firms or planning organizations. And I would love to see eventually where, in every practice, engaging with marginalized communities, validating their experiences, supporting them in establishing relationships that will help them have the resources for affordable housing, for having a good income, is a normal thing. And building partnerships also with those with access to power is a normal thing. So that's really what my ultimate dream is, because I think with that, with the normalization of a human rights-based approach to housing, we will achieve the goals of the National Housing Strategy to see everyone have access to affordable housing, and also economic goals will be met as well, just through that social inclusion.
Absolutely. I love that. Do you have any additional closing thoughts or calls to action for our community?
Yeah, so I guess my call to action would be to check out our website. So we have launched the roadmap report November 16th, so it should be on our website. So this includes the 5 pathways for redevelopment plans to combat systemic racism. Those pathways are, of course, one includes investment. There's one about cross-sectoral partnerships. There's supporting nonprofit and non-market housing. There's also directly about implementing human rights administrative processes and planning processes. That's a really important one. Accountability is a big part of that. And the 5th pathway is to directly confront systemic anti-Black racism. So would love if folks were able to take a read of that report and to reach out to us. If you're interested in investing in the solution in this movement, we'd love to connect with you.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. Once again, we really appreciate not only taking the time to do the interview, but the remarkable work you're doing. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. We just want to close the way we started by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on, as well as our ancestors who toiled without compassion or compensation, and our elders whose shoulders we continue to stand on as we work together for our collective liberation. So once again, thank you so much, Cheryl, and thank you to our viewers and listeners.